For 30 years, she couldn't even touch a man without risking her life, until a rainy day brought a single dad veteran into her world, and her heart skipped for all the right reasons. Like and subscribe for more amazing stories. For 30 years, Vivian Lancaster, the iron-willed CEO of one of the largest tech empires in the world, had lived with a rare medical condition: severe allergic reactions triggered by physical proximity to men. A single handshake could send her into hives, and a hug could send her to the ER. It wasn't psychological. It was real, documented, and devastating to her personal life. Romantic relationships, impossible. Business meetings, conducted behind glass or via video calls. The tabloids called her the untouchable queen. But behind the cold facade was a woman who quietly longed for a connection she'd never experienced. One rainy afternoon, Vivian's private driver had to take a detour through a quiet, working-class neighborhood. As her car idled at a crosswalk, she spotted a man in a worn leather jacket pushing a stroller through the rain, sheltering a giggling little girl under his own coat. Something strange happened: no racing pulse, no tightening throat, no allergic flare. Her body didn't react. Instead, her heart did. His name was Ethan Cole, a decorated Army veteran and single father. He wasn't polished like the men in her boardroom, but he had a steady presence, a quiet strength, and eyes that seemed to see straight through her carefully built walls. When they officially met, thanks to her insisting her driver stop to offer them a ride, Vivian expected the usual alarm bells from her body. But when his hand brushed hers as he helped her out of the car, nothing happened. No rash, no swelling, just a warmth she hadn't felt in 3 decades. Over coffee in a corner cafe, Ethan told her about losing his wife, about raising his daughter alone, and about how he didn't see a billionaire in front of him, just a woman who seemed lonely. For weeks, Vivian found excuses to see him again. Business lunches turned into walks in the park with his daughter. Board meetings were rescheduled so she could visit his modest home, where the scent of fresh-baked cookies replaced the sterile air of her penthouse. Her doctors were baffled scientifically. Nothing should have changed. But maybe, Vivian thought, it wasn't the world she was allergic to. It was the wrong people. One spring evening, as Ethan tucked his daughter into bed and came back to find Vivian waiting in the kitchen, he smiled and said, "So, are we going to keep pretending this is coincidence?" Vivian's laugh was softer than he'd ever heard. She stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath, and whispered, "For 30 years, I couldn't be near anyone. Then I met you." And when he kissed her for the first time, the only thing racing was her heart. Part 1. The untouchable queen. Vivian Lancaster's face was on the cover of Forbes, Fortune, and every business journal worth its ink. She'd taken a struggling software startup and turned it into Lancaster Global, a trillion-dollar empire. But for all her power, she lived with a secret that tabloids loved to twist into gossip, a rare, incurable mast cell disorder that made physical contact with men potentially life-threatening. A brush of skin could trigger hives. A handshake could cause her to swell and struggle to breathe. Romantic relationships, they never lasted past the first date if she even dared try. To the outside world, she was the untouchable queen of business. To herself, she was just lonely. Part 2. A chance in the rain. It was supposed to be a routine drive to the airport, but when a flash flood forced her driver to take the long route, Vivian found herself in an unfamiliar neighborhood. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw him, a tall man in a weathered leather jacket, cradling a little girl under his coat. As they splashed through puddles, he wasn't rushing. He wasn't complaining. He just smiled down at her, as if the rain was a blessing. Something stirred in Vivian, something she hadn't felt in years. "Stop the car," she told her driver. Before she could think it through, she was out in the rain, offering them a ride. Part 3. No reaction. His name was Ethan Cole, a decorated Army veteran and mechanic. His wife had died 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their 6-year-old daughter. Lily. When he reached for her hand to steady her on the curb, Vivian braced for the familiar prickling rash. But it never came. Her breath caught not from panic, but from shock. At the cafe, she found herself leaning forward, listening to him more than she had to any man in decades. He didn't try to impress her with achievements. He spoke about Lily, about fixing old engines, about missing the quiet of the desert nights during deployment. Part 4. Breaking the rules. Vivian began inventing reasons to see him, business consultations that were nothing of the sort. They went from lunches in public to dinners at his small but warm home, where Lily would show Vivian her crayon drawings. The billionaire CEO found herself on the floor building Lego castles, laughing until her stomach hurt. The press caught wind of their meetings, but Vivian didn't care. For the first time, she was living without fear. Her doctors were stunned 30 years of reactions, and now, nothing. She told them, maybe it's not about biology. Maybe I was just surrounded by the wrong people. Part 5. The Leap. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan poured them each a glass of wine. He leaned against the counter, looking at her with that calm, steady gaze. So, he said, are we going to keep pretending this is coincidence? Vivian laughed a soft, unguarded sound. I've spent 3 decades unable to be near anyone. And then I met you. Ethan stepped closer, slow enough for her to stop him if she wanted. She didn't. When his lips touched hers, the only reaction she felt was the rush of her heart, finally remembering how to love. From the top floor of Lancaster Global's headquarters, Vivian Lancaster could see all of Manhattan yet feel utterly alone. She'd built her office like her life. Glass walls, steel furniture, no physical contact with anyone. Her condition wasn't something you could cure with willpower. One handshake with a man could swell her lips and shut her throat. She had a team of medical staff on standby at all times. The tabloids called her cold, untouchable, heartless. The truth was far sadder. Her condition had stolen more than love. It had stolen trust. She didn't date. She didn't hug. She didn't even shake hands. And she had no reason to believe that would ever change. A torrential storm hit as her convoy headed to JFK for a business trip. A sudden flood forced her driver down unfamiliar streets lined with modest shops and rain-slick sidewalks. Through the blurry window, Vivian spotted something that made her pulse skip. A tall man, strong-shouldered, holding a little girl under his leather jacket. Shielding her from the downpour, they were soaked, but laughing in the kind of way Vivian had forgotten existed. Stop the car, she told her driver. When the man turned toward her, Vivian saw eyes like the edge of a storm come deep and unshakable. His name was Ethan Collarmy, veteran, mechanic, widower. His daughter Lily was 6, precocious, and fiercely protective of her dad. When Ethan reached out to help Vivian step over a puddle, she froze. This was it, the test. The moment her skin would flare and her throat would close. But nothing happened. No rash, no swelling, just a strange, impossible warmth in her chest. Her doctor had always said her body's reaction was instant, unavoidable. But here she was, standing inches from a man, feeling nothing but curiosity. They ended up in a small cafe, rain dripping from their coats. Ethan spoke plainly about serving overseas, losing his wife to cancer, and raising Lily alone. Vivian found herself leaning closer, listening in a way she never did in boardrooms. He didn't treat her like a fragile, distant figure. He treated her like a person. When Lily offered her half of a sugar cookie, Vivian hesitated, but then accepted. The little girl grinned like she'd just won something important. Vivian had never accidentally cleared her schedule before, but now she found herself doing it twice a week. She showed up at Ethan's garage under the pretense of needing car work. She attended Lily's school play, slipping in unnoticed until Lily spotted her and waved. The tabloids caught on Billionaire CEO scene with local mechanic, but Vivian didn't care. For the first time in years, her life wasn't about control. Her condition hadn't disappeared entirely. With other men, the reaction still came instantly. But with Ethan, it was as if her body trusted him. Not everyone approved. Vivian's board of directors warned her that personal entanglements could tarnish her image. Ethan's late wife's parents worried he was moving on too fast. And then came the cruelest twist during a business trip. Vivian had to shake hands with a new client. The reaction hit hard. She collapsed in front of an entire room. When Ethan visited her hospital room, she whispered, "I thought I was cured." He took her hand, still no reaction. "You're not cured, Vivian. You're just safe with me." One spring night, after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan poured her a glass of wine. "Are we going to keep pretending this is coincidence?" he asked. Softly. Vivian laughed, nervous but free. "For 30 years, I couldn't be near anyone. And then I met you." Ethan stepped forward, slow enough for her to walk away. She didn't. When he kissed her, her skin stayed calm, her pulse steady except for the racing of her heart, finally remembering how to love. Months later, Vivian was still CEO, but she no longer lived in a fortress of glass.